Hey friends, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the docuseries The End of an Era that's coming out on December 12th, detailing the behind the scenes of the ERAS tour. I don't really know if I want to call this a predictions video or just a chit chat, but there are a lot of things that I'm really gonna need to see in this docuseries, and I wanted to talk about all of the things that I hope we get a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain about. Now, when I first saw this get announced, honestly, my mind was pretty scattered. There's so many things that I want to see explained, unpacked, explored. When I sat down to write out my notes, I was like, I don't even know where to begin. But I guess we'll begin in a spot which is as good as any, and that's makeup and hair. I'm gonna need all the secrets because throughout the rainiest rain shows, the hottest humidity, the heat, the sweat, the outfit changes, you're telling me that makeup did as much once? I used to work as a professional makeup artist and I worked as a hairstylist for years too. So there's some secrets I'm aware of from working behind the scenes, but that seemed supernatural to me. Her hair was a different story. Obviously, if she's in the rain and she's sweating and it's humid, her hair's gonna go back to factory settings. We know that. So I don't think her hairstylist would have been blow drying her hair between eras or anything like that. We know that once her hair became curly in the rain, it stayed curly for the rest of the show. Although there were a few points that I do think she got a little bit of a bang refresh throughout the shows. But I mostly want to know about makeup. I want to know what setting spray was being used to lock all of that in. I want to know what eyelash glue was being used because those lashes did not come off. I never saw an eyelash move in all of the footage I saw, and I watched a lot of the ERAS tour footage. Plus, the thing with pro makeup, hair, on set, film, etc., a lot of the time the best products are often not the most expensive and not obvious. Sometimes they're from theater brands or special effects makeup brands. Sometimes they are just from things that pro artists come across and are not something that is mainstream available to the average consumer. So I definitely need to be knowing more about the makeup and the hair situation. I know we saw a sneak peek in the trailer of her hair products, at least end of night routine, and I would assume she's doing that every night that she performs. So her hair routine, getting ready for a show, will always be on clean hair, which means they will have to be using volumizing products. Anyway, I want to know it all. I really want to know about the set list. I know we got that preview clip of songs on post-its on the wall in order of albums. That's been haunting me since we've seen it. I have no clue if that's her figuring out the set list before the show started or her figuring out surprise songs, because if you look at it, there are songs on there that ended up on the set list and there are songs that didn't, which means they were surprise songs. So what were we doing with these post-its? Like, I genuinely am so curious. Another thing that just came to mind right now is that it could have been like songs she wanted to use as with lyrics for merch or something. I don't know. All to say, I want to know how she sat down and figured it out. I want to see working lists of songs that almost made the cut and then didn't, what was considered and maybe then cut down for time, how she chose to remove what songs she did to make room for Tortured Poets, how she chose what songs from Tortured Poets she wanted to include. I know and I understand that she wanted all the hits to be included. Obviously, if you go through the set list by era, each era is pretty much the singles from that album, with the exception of albums like Folklore, Evermore, that didn't get the same type of single treatment. Obviously, Folklore had singles on it and Evermore had Willow, but I think it's just different because she definitely was picking more of a selection considering that those albums had never been toured. I really also want to know why she didn't play Me in the Lover section. I know that that was kind of considered a flop at the time, and maybe she has grown to not like that song very much. Maybe it's the Brendan Urie of it all, but I know that is kind of a fan favorite, even though some fans pretend to hate it. I think a lot of us would have maybe still enjoyed to hear it. So I'm curious to see if we explore the why and how the set list came to be the way it was. I figure she probably just picked in the more recent albums songs that she was excited to play live. I know she mentioned during the Champagne Problems section of the show that she was so excited to play that song live when she eventually got to again. So maybe some of it was self-serving. Obviously, I think Marjorie was something she played for herself. Also, obviously, it would help a lot of other people and make them feel connected to her. But I know we also got a really short snippet clip of her as a small child with Marjorie playing the piano in the trailer. So I think she is going to be exploring why that was important to her. But all to say, I think she typically probably just picked her favorites to add into eras that weren't just singles. But all this brings me to my next point. Where was debut? Where was her first album? What the hell happened here? What kind of conversation happened for her to leave out an entire era of the ERAS tour? The only thing I could think the entire time that the Eras Tour ran was that maybe she was saving full performances of those songs for a 20th anniversary Taylor's version of Taylor Swift release. Maybe the next time she tours, it'll feature more of those songs, including some of the vault tracks, which, by the way, if you want to hear me talk about what songs I think might be vault tracks on Taylor Swift, Taylor's version, or the 20th anniversary of Taylor Swift, depending on what it ends up being called, I will link that in the cards and in the description down below if you want to check out what I've been calling my vault track wish list. But I would really like to know how the decision to not include this era came about. Was it just for time? Did she feel like the songs were too old? Did she feel like they would just be better served as surprise songs? Maybe she didn't think there would be as many fans that liked them anymore. So many questions, but honestly, I would take even half an answer to one of them. Like, I just want to know what happened. Dying to know any information at all. Justice for debut. Another thing that I desperately need to know every single detail about is surprise songs. How the hell did she go about choosing surprise songs? How did she practice them like the day of for that concert? Because if on the stops where she was playing multiple shows in a row, every night she was changing them and then having to practice for that night and remember the whole rest of the show. Never mind when we got to mashups. That's like actually insane to think about, because some of them that she mashed up had like different time signatures and different keys that she transposed to make them make sense. So she had to change. Like, I'm sure she went with what she was feeling on any given day. I'm sure also part of that decision would have come down to like, you know, if she needed vocal rest on a day, she would have picked songs that probably weren't as vocally challenging for her or weren't as wordy, songs that maybe had more piano in them so she could take breaks playing between. And then on days where she felt, you know, more strong vocally, she could go for the wordy ones, your Death by a Thousand Cuts, your whatever. But I would love to know, just like from her perspective, what that was like, if she felt like there was any extra storytelling element, particularly with the mashups, because some of those songs became completely new songs once she mashed them up with other ones, and I think gave us a lot of perspective into how she feels about those songs or what they mean to her. I honestly wouldn't mind if there was an entire episode out of the 6 where she just talked about surprise songs. I'm not even kidding. I'm also dying to know if any of the surprise songs or mashups were Easter eggs. I'm sure there's tons that we missed, as we always do. Were there any hints to Showgirl in there? But Easter eggs is like a whole other thing. Look, I know we all want the master key of every Easter egg she's ever done, but at this point, I will settle for all the Easter eggs throughout the Eras Tour that we missed as a fandom. I'm sure there were plenty that we didn't pick up on, just as much as there are ones we pick up on that aren't Easter eggs. There were plenty of times that we clowned too close to the sun and probably made her feel really awkward. I'm thinking of that one show where they were chanting Reputation and she was like, anyway, now go stand in the corner and think about what you did. But I think especially since this tour now is done, it would make sense for her to go back and kind of reveal all the things that we missed, because it's not like we can watch, it's not really like we can watch every single show and comb through it to see if there's anything that she might have said or done that seemed like an Easter egg. I know there's a lot of recordings of a lot of the shows, but it's not accessible to everyone, so I don't feel like she would expect for people to still do that, even though I'm sure many of us are doing that. But yeah, like, it's done now. I don't think we're gonna be finding anything new unless we're really combing through and digging through, so I would just really appreciate her like demystifying all of that stuff. Now, her outfits are something that she did use quite a bit to tease things and like kind of be Easter eggs. We saw a lot of purple leading up to Speak Now Taylor's version. We saw the whole show, basically she wore blue when she announced 1989 Taylor's version. So her outfits clearly had significance in some way or another. If you followed along the Eras Tour and you were watching along on a little Grainy live stream like I was, you probably would have heard of games like Swift Alert that had Mastermind, where you could fill out a ballot guessing, you know, what outfits she was going to wear throughout every part of the show, and you would get, you know, awarded points for things that you got right. And it was always really exciting when everyone would guess their things and she would come out in something new. She clearly knew we were watching that, and I'm sure she was aware of games like Mastermind, but I want to know how much planning went into picking those outfits, because she really did make a point to mix things up, and then every once in a while she did repeat things and it was kind of like, huh, why did she wear that again? Interesting. She had all of these different ones to choose from. Never mind that Speak Now got like, I think the most outfits of every era, like the giant ball gowns, and she pretty much only played one song for that era for most of the shows. But anyway, people were trying to figure out patterns and, you know, predict ways that maybe she was selecting things to try to guess what she was going to pick next. And there never seemed to really be any rhyme or reason, especially when she debuted the new outfit for the 1989 set and started mixing and matching the top and the bottom to make combinations. Some of them did have significance, like she did wear the yellow and red set when it was something to do with Travis. What is it? His birthday maybe? Or I don't know. I don't remember exactly. And then like she wore orange and green in Ireland and she wore yellow and blue in Sweden. So there were times that she did that were obvious choices. And then there were times that was just kind of like rabbit hole conspiracy theory. Like, what does it mean? It probably meant nothing, but she really did have a lot to shuffle through. And then every once in a while there would be brand new stuff getting added. And I just want to know how that happened. Was it the designer being like, hey, we made you some new stuff, check it out? Or was she commissioning new outfits to debut at any certain period for any reason? I don't really know. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I always found the bodysuit dress noodle thing that she wears in Fearless with like the silver and the blue. I always thought that was super random. And now that I'm thinking about it, it really does kind of remind me of like the opalite bodysuit that she wore in that photo. So I wonder if that was like, I don't know, maybe that was something. Also, how did she pick outfits for the final show? Like, I want to know why those were the ones she picked, because she did the same outfits for the last 3 shows because she filmed all 3 of them. Curious, very curious. But I think the most confusing outfit of them all was the Reputation bodysuit. Why? What the hell was all of that about? The entire tour, she wore the same outfit. The one outfit that didn't change for almost the entire tour. She changed up every single era. She had multiple options for every single era. And she just did not change rep until she did. For no reason. The theories were crazy. We went wild. We really jumped off the deep end with this one. The like, she's gonna shed her snake skin and it's gonna be the new album and that's when we get the new outfit. And I mean, I don't blame people for that. I was totally on board for a while. Now that we know she didn't even record half of Reputation, a little embarrassing for sure. I will admit that. But what was the point then? What was the point to change all of them but not that one? It seemed so symbolic and I don't feel like we've figured the reason out yet. I know a big theory along a lot of the way was like maybe she had set out to do that. Like maybe when the tour started, she was like, okay, I'm gonna wear the same outfit all the way through, and then when I release Reputation, Taylor's version, I'll change the bodysuit. And then throughout the recording process, she was probably, you know, going through the different albums and doing stuff, and as they were ready, she was like, okay, we'll do Speak Now first, we'll do 1989 next. And then time was probably passing and she was like, we haven't recorded a lot of this and I'm not really happy with how it's sounding and I don't know if I want to do this. And maybe that's when it was like she had the bodysuit, but then why did she change it on that day? What happened that day to make it significant? I just need a deep dive on the Reputation bodysuit. Like I want to understand. I'll take crumbs. I'll take a little whisper of crumbs if she wants, but I would really, really love for her to explain what the hell that was about. Because now there was a brief clip in the trailer that looked like she was in a booth recording at Long Pond Studios, which was really intriguing to me because if we think about it, we know The Life of a Showgirl didn't involve Aaron Dessner or Long Pond Studios at all, and Tortured Poets department wasn't really primarily recorded there. Some audio was recorded there, but I'm not positive that it was her. I wonder if it was more instrumentation from Aaron, and you know how she writes over his tracks sometimes. Like I think that's what that location credit is for. I don't think that during the ERAS tour she had time to go to Long Pond. Maybe she did, but it's curious that they included that and not something like Electric Lady Studios or one of the ones in Europe that she would have been going into for Tortured Poets. So I'm really curious to see if that wasn't a little sneak of maybe her recording the debut album or something like that. I feel like Aaron Dessner makes sense as a producer for Taylor Swift, the album. So I wonder if we will get a little sneak preview of the process of that. And I wonder if we'll get any insight into the trips to Sweden and the writing process of The Life of a Showgirl, since that also did happen throughout the time that they were filming this docuseries. I don't know, to think about how much music she's recorded throughout the run of the entire show is like actually insane to think about. And like the docuseries that's following the tour, I know it started in Europe. It's not following all the way to the beginning. Like I think after Tortured Poets is when they started filming the like backstage behind the scenes stuff. So it's interesting because I don't think she recorded anything else in that time, right? So it would have to be debut or something else. Oh my god, maybe we're actually getting the holiday collection. You can't spell cats without TS. So what the hell is going on with the cats? Do they go with her everywhere? We've seen her in stadiums with them. one of them. We saw Benji in the trailer in the hotel, I'm assuming. Are all three of them always with her? Does she have only one of them at a time? When she goes on stage, does somebody take care of the cats for her? Whose job is it to take care of the cats? Is it Andrea? Is it Austin? Could you imagine Austin Swift, cat caregiver? I just simply must be knowing the cat routine. I know she mentioned that her mom usually stays with her in a lot of the hotels, and then some of the times she was by herself. So I guess her mom would watch the cats or cat if they're with her, but her parents are usually at the shows too. So like, is the cat just like in a dressing room backstage or like, and I think Benji was like the show cat, right? Like he was the one that came from the show business life. Benji is a showgirl. So I guess maybe he's better at being taken around and stuff. Maybe like Olivia and Meredith like don't really want to be on tour as much. Maybe they like staying at home. I don't know. I need to know about the cats. I want to know what's going on with the cats. Because you know they have high security. Like, there's no way that these cats, like, don't have their own security guards. The Roomba, the tortured poets department floating stage that a lot of us began calling the Roomba. We learned in the ERAS Tour book that there was somebody in it operating it with a controller, which I'm gonna need to be seeing inside of. I want to understand how a person was, like, laying in that, I guess. How that worked, how they planned it, how they organized it all. Who is this guy? Did he get paid enough money? I hope so. I'm sure he did. But another big thing that comes to mind when I think about the Roomba is the time that it malfunctioned. There was a show that it stopped working and they had to improvise the choreography, and the dancers were helping her get on and off the platform for different things, and they were pushing it around. The whole time watching it, I was just thinking like, wow, good, it must be light enough for them to push and whatever, all this stuff. And now that I know that there was a guy in there the whole time, what was happening in there? Like, I'm sure he had an in-ear and people were probably like, it's not working, blah, blah, blah. Like, did he have a little walkie-talkie that he could like chat? My thing's not working. It's just crazy. I just want to know like all those ins and outs and like how all of that happens, because there's so much magic in the stage production of it all. And that extends to like the whole rest of the stage. I want to see the like horse riding thing that gets her from one end to the next. I want to see underneath the stage, behind the stage, how they do the quick changes backstage. Like, I want to see all of the behind the scenes magic. I want to more than peek behind that curtain. Like, I really want to know how they did stuff, because I find that stuff like really, really fascinating. But the Roomba in particular, like, I want to know Mr. Roomba. I need to be knowing who was in there, or Mr. or Mrs. Roomba. I want as much footage as they can possibly give us of Mandy Moore, the choreographer. I have been a fan of hers for a really, really long time. I grew up watching So You Think You Can Dance, and she was a featured choreographer, and her work was always some of my favorite. She manages to just create things that like really make sense and really translate well even to non-dancers, I think. And there is just something so magic about the way that she directs and teaches and choreographs. So I will take as many clips of Mandy Moore as they want to give us. I think it's really interesting to see the insight into how they would have gotten ready for things, and the fact that this tour documentary starts like when Tortured Poets was added. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of the backstage, behind the scenes choreography, all of that. We did get some behind the scenes rehearsal footage of the Tortured Poets set in the I Can Do It With a Broken Heart music video. So I'm really curious to see how much from that video is going to be explored more in the docuseries, because I really want to be getting into the mind of Mandy Moore a little bit more, because she's so cool in my opinion. I think she's so good at what she does. The last few things that I'm really hoping to see more of is kind of just like random thoughts that came to me, but things like how she dealt with having a cold. You know, there were a couple of times where she had to ask for a tissue and blow her nose and things like that. If you haven't seen the compilations of her choking on flies on stage, she ate many a fly throughout the ERAS tour, and I don't know, I think it's so funny. I would love to see her just talk about what that's like, and like if she kept track of how many times it was happening, because we surely did. We definitely did. And I'm sure she'll talk about this because she talked about it at length in the book, but I just really hope she goes into rain shows and talks about the experience of rain shows. There were a few rain shows that like it rained so heavily that the piano started malfunctioning, so obviously like it can be dangerous for all of the gear and stuff to be getting wet, but she seems to genuinely love performing in the rain so much that I would just love to hear her talk about it. I love to hear her talk about things that she loves to, and like she gets so, I don't know, anyone talking about something that they love, they get so passionate about it. So I think rain shows is going to be a really interesting thing to hear her talk about, and particularly things like the cold rain. I know know when she performed in the UK, they had to start putting gloves on her for the Tortured Poet set because her hands were getting so cold right before surprise songs, and then her hands would start like clamping up into a claw. So the gloves were there to warm them up so that she could play guitar and piano in the set that followed the Tortured Poets era. So things like that, like how the cold and the rain and the heat and all of this stuff affected her. I'm sure she'll go into it, but I particularly want to hear about the rain shows because we know they're special to her. We could honestly go on for days talking about all the many details that I would love to see her explore in this docuseries. I haven't even touched upon things like merch. There was a clip in the trailer where it looked like she was cheering something on, like she might have been watching a football game, but if you look in the background, it looks like they're in a meeting. The screens are showing the merch and stuff for the ERAS tour. So was she backstage and that was just the stadium showing what merch was available on the screens, or were they having a meeting planning out the merch and other stuff was just happening? Like, I just have so many questions about merch in particular because it's a little hit or miss in my opinion. But if that's not what that clip was for, all to say, like, there's so much more we could talk about that we're hoping to see in this docuseries. But really the truth of it is I am just so excited to get to peek behind the curtain, so to speak. I think there are so many cool things to learn. If you like stage design and live performance and things like that, like how they do the stage magic of it all, watching the setup of the stage and how they programmed stuff for the screens. I didn't even talk about the dive, like how she came up with the dive, what the idea with that all was. Does it tie into the Ophelia drowning imagery of Showgirl? Did she even know that before she created the ERAS tour? Honestly, I'm not joking. I could go on for days. If you have any theories, predictions, hope that you want to see in this docuseries that I have not touched upon in this video, please leave that in the comments down below because I really, really want to read them. I am so excited for this docuseries. Like I said, it premieres on December 12th, so we get the first 2 episodes of the docuseries plus the ERAS tour, the final show, so the filming of the final night in Vancouver, which I'm obviously going to watch all of it, but you guys let me know if you want to see me reacting to that. I don't think we'll get away with it on YouTube because of copyright and stuff, so I will potentially look into Patreon and all that sort of stuff if that's something that you're interested in. Otherwise, that might just be something I keep for myself and I watch to myself and then can break down in other videos if you want to hear my thoughts about them. But all to say, we are absolutely not done talking about Taylor Swift this year. In fact, I don't think I'm ever done talking about Taylor Swift. So once again, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see me break this stuff down and talk about Taylor Swift some more. But until then, thanks so much for watching. Bye!